Hey, welcome back to the Club Junkie podcast. This is the final show of 2024, which is pretty crazy. This year has absolutely flown by. I can't believe that it's done. It's over. Christmas is over. We're kind of waiting on New Year's, and it's just a couple days away. But before we get into today's episode, just want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Titleist and the Vokey SM10 wedges. Nothing could do more to sharpen your short game than a fresh set of grooves, especially if those grooves are spin milled into a new Vokey design SM10 wedge. Bob Vokey and his team are always grinding, and the work shows in SM10, already a favorite amongst the best wedge players in the world. SM10 was designed around the three keys to great wedge play: shot versatility, distance and trajectory control, and maximum spin. You can see that with these, they fly lower, giving you more control, but they still hold a ton of spin into the green, and the top players around the world love the look and feel of Vokey wedges. The SM10 lineup includes a new tee grind, a low bounce option that encourages real artistry around the greens. I know golf directors are loving the tee grind. So score some fresh grooves with the Vokey SM10 and see how sharp your short game can be. Find your nearest Vokey fitter or use the online wedge selector tool to unlock the right SM10s for you at Vokey.com. So hopefully you guys had a great Christmas. I know this show is kind of coming out late on Thursday, but I mean, it was Christmas. I wasn't recording yesterday, and the past couple days I've just been busy with family stuff and parties and whatever. So so this show is a little bit late coming out, but I think it's okay. Like I said, the last show of the year, and I truly thank everyone for following along this year. If you just listened to a couple episodes or all of them or whatever, I truly appreciate everybody tuning in, because if you guys didn't tune in and interact with me on Instagram, if you want to, at Club Junkie Pod, if you didn't engage with me there and do Q&As and all this other stuff, I wouldn't be doing this. So I really appreciate everyone there. And again, hopefully you guys had a great year and excited for what's to come in 2025. I think it should be a good golf year again, and should be exciting, messing with equipment and hanging out and chatting with all you guys and doing all that. So thank you very much. I appreciate everything that you guys have done for me in 2024, and kind of giving me this ability to do what I love, which is mess with golf equipment and interact with you guys about golf equipment. So I really appreciate it, and thank you. So hopefully you had a good, safe holiday season with you and your family and friends, whoever. And hopefully, come New Year in a few days, you guys the same. It's have a safe time. Whether you're traveling somewhere or whatever, be safe and have fun, enjoy the time, and then we'll get into next year. So I figured out. I think last week I hinted at doing the new Lab Oz 1 reviews, the Oz.1, and I was going to do that, and I have them, and I've been putting a ton, but it's only been indoors. It's been super cold here in Detroit, and it's been snowy and all that. So it's not snowing right now, but it's now like raining and it's a little bit warmer. So I just haven't gotten them outside yet. So I want to putt with some more of them and then talk about them. I really like the look and all that, but I think the first show of the year will be brand new Lab putters. So we can wait for that, and it should be pretty exciting. But I decided today that I'm going to do something a little different. We're going to do kind of the Club Junkies 2024 Most Underrated Award. So I think these are clubs that they didn't necessarily have to come out in 2024, but they were in the current line. They're part of 2024. They may be getting replaced next year. We'll just have to kind of wait and see on a lot of these. But they've been out, either got launched in 24 or they ran the whole course of 24 in terms of being available. They were in the catalog in the line. So want to go through and do some of these. We're going to do basically driver, fairway, hybrid, utility iron, wedges. We'll do putter, ball, and I think and we'll throw in wood shaft, because it's kind of the Club Junkie show. We got to talk about shafts. But yeah, talk about some of these, and these are clubs that I think are really, really, really good, and just nobody talks about them. Now I know some people will jump in and say, "Oh no, that club's so good, I play it," or me and all my friends love it, or whatever. And it's probably right. There's probably a small group of people who absolutely love some of these clubs, but I think for the overall vast majority of golfers, they just don't. They've heard of them. Like, these aren't like, oh my gosh, I've never even heard of that club. But these are just clubs that, like, when you go into that category and start looking at clubs, this isn't. I don't think any of these are in like your top three. When you go look at some of these, I think there are so many other clubs that are looked at before that, and I think these are probably just as good right there with like the top 3, 5, whatever the category is. And, you know, for some players might be even better. But so we're going through and we're going to do Club Junkies 2024 most underrated clubs. And I think maybe it'll become something we do every year. We'll see how people feel about it. But yeah, these are ones that I think are definitely worth a look, especially if you're looking at any of these categories, because some of them will carry over into 25. But I think these are the ones that, you know, definitely worth taking a look at. And I think people just kind of forgot about last year and didn't realize how good they are. So let's start with driver, and you know, we'll start at the top of the bag because we always do that with whether we're doing what's in the bag videos or what. But driver, and this one I feel like there could be a handful because I feel, and the other part of this too is I didn't really put anything direct to consumer on here because I don't really have access to a ton of direct to consumer stuff. Like they don't send in a lot of product for media samples and stuff like that. I don't test a ton of direct-to-consumer products. So I'm going to keep it to stuff that you're going to buy pretty much in a shop from traditional companies, only because there's so much direct-to-consumer stuff out there that I've never hit. You know, like I've never hit Callaway irons. I've hit some of the Haywood stuff, but not all of it. You know, same thing. I've hit some the new Sub 70 driver, but I haven't hit any of the brand new irons. So there's a lot out there that I haven't touched. So this stuff is all stuff that I've actually hit. And I think is easy to get. You can walk into a golf shop, and any of these things, for the most part, are pretty much there. So yeah, so just to go, because I know people will sit there and go like, oh, what about this or that? You know, from these direct to consumer brands, and I'm not knocking their products; they make some great stuff. I just haven't hit much of it, so I don't want to, you know, put something on there that that I've never touched or never hit. So this is all stuff that I've hit, I've had experience with, and yeah, like I said, for the most part, you can go and get it at your local golf shop. So again, we'll start with driver, and this was a tough one for me. I kind of looked through and I kind of looked at, you know, I think, you know, I'll give you the one, and then we'll get into what I think is kind of like the runner up to it. But so this one here, driver, I'm gonna go Mizuno ST Max. I think this driver here, I hit it. I was extremely impressed with it. I know that, you know, it is, you know, built more for the very, very forgiving, a little bit high launching. So not necessarily the, you know, the golf director crowd, but I think when you look at kind of how hot the 10K type drivers, you know, got this year, you look at this ST Max, and I think it hung with everything in terms of forgiving. If you want to look at, you know, all the big boys out there with their standard or more forgiving models, I think the ST Max was right there in terms of straightness. It was super straight, very forgiving. When I did my 3-swing challenge with it video on it, I think hopefully it came across. Like I was blown away by how straight some of the mishits and stuff like that were. The mishits were so long. I think on like the 16th hole at Bella Vista, I mishit it, and I walked down, and it was so far down the fairway because I'm going to play that hole an absolute ton. And I mean, I felt like I hit a good drive. I mean, it was just that far down. I was really, really shocked. But it's got a good shaping. It's a little more rounded. Oh, I got it right here. I'm going to say it's a little more rounded than maybe some other drivers. But overall, I think the fit and finish is really good. I like the kind of the black gloss with the carbon fiber. The sole, I think, is pretty cool. It's got that what is it? That Cortex chamber on the bottom. That's really massive. But I feel like the face a little bit shallower, but it's not too big. The overall footprint isn't massive. And I think the performance is great. I think ball speed's phenomenal, especially on the mishits. When you do hit it solid, it goes a long, long way. It does launch a little bit higher. It does have a little bit of spin, much like a lot of these super forgiving drivers, but not near that bad. I mean, I was playing the 9.5. I had it turned up one. And the other thing too is like the face didn't look crazy shut or anything like that. It still had a nice straight look to it, or square look at a dress. But overall, I think this driver was super underrated. And when it first hit, I think people kind of were like, "Whoa, what is it?" And then it just went away. Like, and I think part of it is Mizuno. You know, Mizuno is known as an iron company, and they're not. I mean, they everybody knows they have woods, but nobody's really like excited about them. But this driver here, I think, really, really was good. I think it was definitely held its own against, you know, the 10K stuff, the super forgiving stuff, without being crazy draw biased, without being crazy high launching and crazy high spinning. It definitely did launch a little bit higher. It did spin a little bit, but it wasn't crazy. And I think the look of it is really traditional, really classic looking. Sound and feel was good. It wasn't. It was a little on the louder side, but not wildly loud. And yeah, overall, I think it was a great performer that just nobody talks about. I think the ST series in general from Mizuno isn't probably talked about enough, but this driver here I thought was really, really solid. And to be honest, now, like after I pulled it out from up above out of the with the other drivers, I probably should have played this driver more throughout the year. It just I hit it so well. So a really, really impressive driver. If you're looking for something forgiving without worrying about, hey, I'm going to lose distance, I still need something that's long that gets out there. I think the Mizuno ST Max was a great driver that just didn't get a ton of love this year. And like I said, I think it's just not because it's bad. I think it's a phenomenal driver. I think it's just because Mizuno, when you say Mizuno, everybody just thinks irons and wedges, and nobody thinks woods. And if you give the Mizuno woods a try, I think you'll be extremely impressed. But the ST Max, especially if you're looking for something straight, this thing just goes really straight. It's got a good look to it. And I think even if you're, a player who kind of says, man, I really have a certain look I like, whatever, I don't need that face shut, all that, go look at an ST Max, and I think you'll be really, really surprised in how good this thing looks. So really a good driver. I think the ST Max was, again, one of the most underrated. I know there's probably some others out there. And then honestly, I think my kind of second, the runner up to it, which I think is kind of surprising, I think the stock QI10 from TaylorMade. I think TaylorMade's QI10 was really good. Now, was it amazing for people who needed low spin and lower launch and all that? No. It definitely was a head that spun a little bit. It had maybe a little bit more draw bias than some people might like, but I thought it was really good. I hit it really well. I was impressed with it. Now, I'm not a high spin guy, so for me, that added little spin to it definitely didn't hurt. So I think that the stock TaylorMade QI10 was probably my runner-up in terms of underrated. I just think nobody talked about it. People talked about the LS, people talked about the Max, and the QI10 just kind of went by the wayside. But for me, the number one was the Mizuno ST Max, and I think that, for me, is the 2024 most underrated driver in terms of performance, all around, just really good driver that nobody, or not enough people really tried. I think it was definitely something out there that more people should have tried. So I'm going to go with that. And then we move into fairway wood. And I'm kind of basing this more off like 3 woods. I know that 3 wood is different than a 7 wood and things like that. I'm going to base it more off of 3 wood or 3-4 wood, depending on what you want, but the higher end side there. And for me, I think out of all the fairways, there were some really, really good ones this year. But the one for me that I think was kind of the top that nobody's talking about. Now, it hasn't been out as long, came out during the summer, so it hasn't been out as long, but I still think it hit. Everybody kind of was like, wow, that looks really good. And then everybody stopped talking about it. And I think this going into next year is one that is for sure worth trying. But I think it is the Tour Edge Exotics C725. Now, I think it was a C725, so it's going to run through next year. But it came out, again, in the summer. And this thing here, I think, is just an absolute great 3-wood. I think if you're looking for something a little bit more compact, not crazy big, a little bit more of a kind of a player's look to it, it fits it. I love the matte carbon, the matte top, just flows really well. You can kind of see the carbon tech on it. Sole has a ton, 2 adjustable weights plus an adjustable hosel, so you can really dial it in. You can move a weight, heavy weight forward, take some spin off, make it launch a little lower, move the heavy weight back, and then that weight in the back, you can set it up to, to fade, neutral, or draw. Ton of adjustability to it. I think the face height is good. You can hit it off the deck, hit it off the tee. It's pretty versatile. And again, depending on the player you are, is if you need to knock spin off, if you need to add spin, you can do that. And this thing, when you set it down at address, looks really, really good. I hit this a lot this year, did a 3-swing challenge on it. I think I was really impressed with how well shots low on the face went. Now, this is a titanium faced club, so definitely has some heat to it. But when you hit it low in the face, which is where most people miss their 3-wood, the ball definitely goes. It's definitely got a little bit of a flatter launch. It's not crazy high. They make an E series for that. But I think the C series for the better player is something that people aren't necessarily talking about. They kind of talked about it when it first hit, and then it kind of went away. But it's got a little bit more forward CG, and for the better player, I think this thing could be a real good 3-wood. And it's something that you can hit it off the deck. I think it's low spin enough where if you hit it off the tee, it's not going to launch too high over spin. And forgiveness wise, it's not too bad. I mean, for me, who I'm struggling to get back into the single digit after a rough year, I think this thing here is more than forgiving for somebody who's, you know, a 10, 11, 12 handicap, and I think anything lower is definitely going to find some, you know, some big time performance out of it. But it's long on center strikes, long low on the face, pretty darn stable when you miss it. I mean, it's not as stable and as forgiving as the E Series one, but this one definitely has more of a player's look to it. And I think pack a ton of tech into this thing. Tour Edge in the exotics line has always done really well in fairway woods. I think they've always made some really good ones. And this one, again, is just one that that is really, really solid. So big fan of the C725. Again, it's one of those that even me, I mean, I kind of hit it. I did a 3-swing challenge video on it. I did a review on it. And then it kind of didn't make into the bag a whole lot more from there. So it's something that definitely needs to go in my bag more. I think I'm going to put a slightly different shaft in it. It had a Project X Hazardous Gen 5 Black in there, which is a little lower launching, lower spinning. So I think if I toss something in there that's a little higher launch, a little higher spin, I should find this to be really, really good. But really impressed. Love the adjustability, love the sound and feel, love the performance. I mean, everything about it. I think Tour Edge did a really, really good job. And again, the shaping on it, extremely traditional, a little bit more compact, just overall really, really good looking 3-wood. So if you're looking for 3-woods, kind of haven't found anything there, this C725 is definitely probably something worth checking out. And again, it's definitely something that in my bag for all of 2025 will definitely be something that I throw in there more and more often. So a really good one there. And yeah, so all right, so the backup for Fairway, again, I think there's a handful out there that are pretty good. I think Fairway, there's a few less sleepers, but I'm going to go with the PXG Black Ops. For me, I think that Fairway, I was super impressed when I got fit into it early in the year. I think, you know, whether it's a 3-wood, a 7-wood, whatever, I think it's versatile. It's got a little deeper face. You can hit it off the tee. You can hit it off the deck. It launches high. It's got a little bigger footprint to it. So, you know, when you look down at it, it's a little larger, but it's overall really, really forgiving. So I think PXG did a really nice job with Black Ops in terms of the fairways. And again, nobody really hits them. Nobody really talks about them. And I know they're a little harder to find in stores nowadays compared to years ago. But I think that's a really good fairway that just nobody messes with. You know, you just don't see them. And I've got a 3 and a 7 wood, and I think both of those things perform really, really well. Tons of adjustability with weights on the bottom, interchangeable or you know, adjustable hosel. So the PXG Black Ops in terms of the runner up in overrated or underrated. The runner-up and underrated, I think, is there. I think it's just one of those ones that you can hit off the tee, it doesn't overspin, hit it off the deck, you can still launch it, you miss it, it still goes straight, and then, you know, like I said, dial it into your swing is really, really easy, and, you know, change the swing weight, all that. It's super easy to do. So I think the PXG Black Ops is a great runner-up to the Tour Edge Exotic C725 in terms of underrated fairway woods for 2024. So we move into hybrids. We're going to go hybrids now. And I know hybrids overall, just in general, are kind of down compared to high lofted fairways. So most people now, where they used to play a hybrid, they're playing 5 woods, 7 woods, 9 woods now. There's just so many really good high lofted fairways. You're just not seeing as much played in the hybrid arena. So for the most underrated, I'm going to go with the PXG Black Ops. I know I just said it for the runner-up, but I think the hybrid is really, really good. Again, no one plays it, but I think it's compact enough where good players look down at it. It's got a good shape. It's small. It's not, you know, looking like a cross between a fairway wood and a hybrid. Has a smaller look to it, small footprint, a little bit deeper face. You can hit it off the tee, but overall, I think it looks really good. It's really forgiving. It's easy to hit. You hit it off the toe, heel, high, low in the face. You're still going to get a good shot out of it. It's not the highest launching, you know, hybrid out there, I don't think. But I think overall it plays kind of mid-high, easy to get in the air. But for the better players, you don't have to worry about, you know, it getting up just straight in the air and going high and falling down without getting the distance you need. And then also, you know, for those players who go like, I'm anti-left, you have an adjustable hosel. You can make it flat, you know, the line go flat. And it's got 3 movable weights on the bottom. You can throw a big heavy weight out in the toe, and you can take all that left out of it. So I think having that ability there, and then, yeah, I mean, the sound and feel is really good. It's got that nice kind of, you know, steel ting to it when it goes. But overall, I think it's a really consistent, really good hybrid that, you know, you can use as a better player. You can use as a little bit more of a kind of a mid-handicap player. And then for that higher handicap. They have, I believe, the XP one as well, which is a little bit bigger. But for the standard Black Ops, I just feel like it fits a wide range of players, and they've got enough lofts in it where you can kind of fit it anywhere in the bag. Again, with the adjustable hosel, you can change the loft a little bit, kind of get the gapping right. But overall, I think it's still really, really good hybrid. I've gamed the 4 hybrid in my bag. I took the 4-iron out. I'm gaming the 4 hybrid. And of course, I keep forgetting to put it up here. But yeah, 3 movable weights on the sole, except put the heavy one out in the toe, and you can basically take away a bunch of the left. And also, in the hosel, they've got the standard settings of, up or down, and then they also have the flat versions of those as well. So a really great option there. And then, on the crown, it's got the cool carbon fiber kind of look to it, and, multi-material, but it's not super huge. And even in the 22 degree, you don't see a ton of face to it. That's the one thing, is you get into like the 4 hybrids and 5s, you tend to see so much face, and they look a little funky. And these, I think, PXG did a nice job with the design on these, not seeing too much of the face address, even at the higher lofts. So a really good hybrid. Again, I think, nobody's tried them, and I get it, they're a little harder to try than some of the other stuff, but I think this is just a super underrated hybrid. And same thing, if you're looking for, a hybrid instead of a fairway wood, because maybe you just don't hit fairway woods well, so you're looking for a hybrid instead to kind of fit a spot in the bag, especially the top end. I think the standard Black Ops is a really good option. And you get a good blend of forgiveness, distance, and adjustability, and I think those things kind of work really, really well. For the backup, or the second place, the runner-up in most underrated, I think it's the Callaway Paradym AI Smoke. I have one. It's the 3 hybrid. They strengthen the lofts a little bit, so you gotta kind of look at loft. You can't just go by the number on it. In terms of 3, 4, whatever. I think you definitely got to look at the loft number. But the same thing, adjustable. It doesn't have crazy movable weight, so it maybe has a little more left in it. But I think the ball speed's fantastic on it. The look is really good. Same thing with PXG. It's not too small. It's not too big. It's a little more kind of rounded, a little less pear-shaped than the PXG. The toe's a little more square in the PXG compared to the Callaway. It's a little more kind of rounded off. But again, a hybrid that off the deck gets in the air easily, goes a long way. The face is deep enough you can hit it off the tee without having to really worry about tee height and things like that. Excuse me. And it's overall just a really good performer. And I think, having the Smoke and then the Smoke Max, you're able to have something that's a little bit smaller, appeal to that eye of that slightly better player. And it does look really good. So that thing performs really well. I hit it, and I think I got like a 3 hybrid or something like that, and the loft was just too strong. I needed the 4 to kind of fit the spot of the 3. But I think once you look at the lofts and you get that part, dialed in correctly, it's a really, really good hybrid that just, again, nobody really talks about. No, hybrids in general, just people don't talk about it as much as they used to. It's one of those, they're talking more about 7 woods and 5 woods and 9 woods than they are talking about hybrids. But hybrids still do have a place for certain players, and I think the PXG Black Ops is probably the most underrated in my opinion. And I think that Callaway Paradym AI Smoke is probably right behind it in terms of just not tried, not talked about, don't see many in bags. But when you do hit it, you realize how really good both of those clubs are. So we move into utility irons, and I know utility irons are kind of interesting. Everybody's kind of got their own thoughts on utility irons, but I see more and more people playing them. I think there's been kind of a big resurgence in how good utility irons are. They've been improving, and I think you're seeing more of them in bags. I know I get a lot of questions on utility irons, and I really wasn't much of a utility iron player. I did start putting one in as a 4-iron, and the one I put in was a Mizuno Pro. Or the Pro Fly High. I think the thing's really good, but I think the most underrated one, and I talk about this one a lot, but not many people do, is the Cobra King Tech Utility. This thing here, I don't know if it's going to carry over into 25. I know Cobra just announced a bunch of their new drivers and woods and stuff, but the King Tech Utility I think is really, really fantastic. This is one of the ones that I have in my bag. It kind of makes a lot of the rotation. It's got just a little bit of offset, not too much. Slightly longer blade length. The top line's fairly thin. Most utilities have a fairly thick top line, but this one is fairly thin. It's nothing too crazy. You do see a little bit of the back kind of muscle, which some people that's a turn off, but a lot of utilities you're going to see that. But this one here, I think performance-wise, with the power shell kind of L face and the hot face technology, this thing's got it's got some distance, but it's not crazy long. This thing isn't going to be something that you hit and you just go, holy smokes, it's going forever. I can't gap it. I can't figure it out top into my bag. It kind of comes out as more of like a mid trajectory, but a flatter launch than say the Mizuno Pro Fly High or like the Ping Eye crossover. This comes out a little bit flatter, and I think for players who are bigger hitters who hit it higher, hit it with more spin, you're going to be able to kind of hit this a little more flat. It's not going to get up as high as some of the others, but you're also going to kind of work it. You're going to be able to flight it high, flight it low, work it right to left. It's just going to offer you a lot of options while still giving you a little bit more ball speed and maybe just a touch more forgiveness out there, when you do miss it off the toe or the heel a little bit, because it is pretty stable, it's pretty big, and that longer blade length should offer a little bit stability. The sound and feel is pretty good. It's touch firm, but it's got a nice low pitch sound to it. It kind of has like a crack sound to it. I love this thing off the tee. Off the deck, I could use something that maybe goes a little bit higher, but off the tee, this thing is really, really good. And like I said, it adds a little bit of firepower without being too much. But hitting it out of the rough, out of the fairway, all that, I think it's really easy. And I think this is a really just versatile, overall, all around, really good utility iron. I think it just is. It does everything really well without doing any one thing crazy good or something like that. It just does. And the look from address is good. I think it's got just enough offset where it doesn't look out of place. And proportionally, I think it looks really, really solid. So the Cobra King Tech utility, I think, is the most underrated for 2024. I know there's a couple different models out there that are probably in that space, but I think this one is probably the most underrated. Now for the runner-up, I think it's the Wilson Staff utility, the new one that just came out. People always ask when they're looking at utilities, like what's something that has very, very little, if no offset. And the Wilson Staff utility has very, very little offset to it. Really good look. It's over a little bit bigger than this in terms of just blade size, but I think for the player who's definitely hitting off the tee, you'll love the distance out of it. The sound and feel is really, really good. It's super soft, and you can still hit it off the deck fairly well. And if you're a bigger hitter, you won't have any problems. But that one there too, same thing. It's built to hit different shots. It's built to flight it down, hit it high, right or left. You can kind of do everything with it. And overall, just the package is really, really good looking. So I think the Wilson Staff utility would probably be my runner-up to the Cobra King Tech. But I like this thing a whole lot. I think it's, like I said, really not used enough. And I think more people who would hit it would really like this utility. So those are my two for utility irons. And then we move into irons. And this one, I think, is the same thing. There are so many options in terms of irons when you think about underrated irons. But for me, I'm going to go with, we would just mention the runner-up, Wilson. I'm going Wilson again, and I think the Wilson Staff Model CB. Everybody talks about the blades, and they say how beautiful they are and all that, and nobody really talks about the CB. And when you talk about CB irons, great CBs, I mean, you're talking about Mizuno, Wilson, TaylorMade's CB. There's so many really good CBs out there, forged CBs, and the Wilson Staff model was never talked about. When you set it down, it looks fantastic. It's got a little bit of a boxier, sharper toe on it, which some people really love. I think the turf interactions on it is pretty good. It's got a decent amount of camber to the sole. I think it gets through soft conditions really, really well. And when you hit it well, the sound and feel is soft, muted, thuddy. It's just a really great CB. And yes, it's not going to be the most forgiving CB out there. It's not meant to be. It's meant for a very high-skilled player who wants a thin top line that box your toe and wants to be able to kind of hit the shots they want to hit, work the ball in a bunch of different ways. And I think the Wilson CB does that. It's really, really good. Excuse me. I got a chance to hit it out at Pinehurst. I got the chance to hit it back at home and play a round or a couple rounds with it. And honestly, really, really good. If I had a better game, I would definitely want to put those in the bag more often. I just can't quite hit the center of the face enough to make those work. But I think the Staff Model CB is fantastic. And I think, again, I think it's just as good looking as maybe not quite as good looking as the Blade. The Blade is kind of beautiful. But I think the CB is really, really good looking. And I think Wilson did a phenomenal job with that CB. And better players just need to try it, because once they do try it, I think they'll realize that the thing is really, really good. So Wilson Staff Model CB, is going to be my most underrated for 2024. In terms of the next underrated, this one was really tough to figure out. I was really kind of struggling with this one, but I'm going to go with the Cobra King Forge CB. I'm totally butchering the name. I know I just messed up that name, but Cobra CB I think is absolutely fantastic. I know a few people who play it, but when you look at overall the golfing public and you start looking at CBs, rarely does anyone ever talk about, or rarely does anybody ever have the Cobra CB in there. So the King CB is absolutely good. The look of it is great. It's compact. It's got a little shorter blade length, heel to toe. Top line's pretty thin. It's got a nice kind of I want to call it like double muscle in there, or a muscle in there. The cavity has kind of a step to it. But I've hit these before. I've hit some friends of mine's, and feel on them is really, really good. They're soft. The sound is good. The turf interaction is actually pretty solid. I've only actually played them on firm conditions out in California, but I think the look, sound, feel really, really good. And I think they're more forgiving than most people get them credit for. So when you look at those CBs, you can miss them a little bit, and you're okay with the Cobra. You may get a little bit higher launch with them compared to something like the staff model CB, but I think overall the Cobra King CB is really good. And if you haven't, tried it, because everybody talks about, again, Titleist, whoever, these are really solid as well. So if you're looking for that kind of single piece forged CB, I think the Cobra one is really, really tough to beat, and just nobody tries it. So when you go into a store, you're looking for that kind of iron, definitely put it on your list of ones to try. So Wilson Staff Model CB, most underrated. Cobra King and CB, probably right behind it in terms of those ones you could almost flip or flop. I feel like both those really don't get enough love, and they should, because they're really, really good. For wedges, I'm going to go with, because this one I feel like there was a little less in terms of options. I feel like the big name guys are out there. Everybody talks about them. But, direct to consumer is kind of the next level of where people want to go with it. But I still think that the TaylorMade Mill Grind 4 are super underrated. Nobody, everybody talks about Vokey, Cleveland, Callaway, all those. Nobody talks about the Mill Grind 4s, or at least not enough people do. And I think, one, they improved the sound and feel over MG3 a ton. I think they're much softer, offer better, softer sound, or better, softer feel, lower pitched, more muted sound to them. The spin is really good. Excuse me. They have those, that new kind of intermediate groove that they laser in. They offer a really great spin at pretty much every loft, whether you're hitting it out of the rough, out of the fairway. They spin really well. They're consistent. And then you look at, too, they added a handful of soul grind options. So not only do you have a really great wedge, now it's more versatile, it fits more players, and more options there is always great. So the Mill Grind 4s, I have been playing them, I would say a decent amount. I've got the Tiger Woods 60, Tiger Woods 56, and they're a little more square toe than I typically like, but I know a lot of players do like that. They like the look of it. But these Mill Grind 4s are really good, and they perform really well. I think, whether you're playing out of a bunker, whether you're hitting it off a tight lie, you're going to get great spin. But it's also like predictable. Whether, if you're hitting it out of the rough, it's going to release just a little bit, a certain amount. But overall, these wedges play really, really well, and the sound and feel is greatly improved. So it's pretty interesting when you see, a lot of TaylorMade staff playing the Mill Grind 4s, but you don't see a ton of amateurs yet playing them. But I think you're missing out. I think this is a really good wedge, with a bunch of different options, great sound feel, and, they play really well. So, no, everybody talks about, the other brands, but I think these play right up there with any other brand out there, because they definitely perform, and there's definitely more options than just, hey, here's a 50, here's a 56, here's a 60, go play. You've got a few soul grinds in that 56 and 60 option that you can dial into your conditions, your swing, what you're trying to do with the wedge. I think they really work well, and I think not enough people have tried them to see if they work for them. So TaylorMade's Mill Grind 4 would be my most underrated wedge of 2024. Now, backup is, again, a little bit tougher, but I'm going to go with the Mizuno T24s. I think the Mizunos are really good wedges. They're extremely soft. They feel great. I think you can put them up against most of kind of the JDM big time forging house wedges, and I think they're just as soft or very, very close. But really good performance as well. I think for me, the MG4 spin maybe just a little bit more, but the Mizuno's, the T24s are great. I wish they offered a few more sole options in terms of designs. I feel like everything kind of shifted a little bit more towards the low bounce side with Mizuno, but overall, I think the shaping's really good. They're a little bit more rounded. They're pretty compact. They play really well, and again, I mean, sound and feel is what you're buying a Mizuno for, and you're getting it with the T24 wedge. So, most underrated, I'm going TaylorMade Mill Grind 4. Runner-up, I will go Mizuno T24 because both these wedges are really good. And if you're looking for new wedges for next year, I think both of these should be on your list of wedges to try out. When we get to putters is a tough one because one, there's so many smaller, like boutique putter makers. Like there's so many putters out there that you can get from all these different people. But I feel like the one that no one talked about, and I feel I know why, but I think the Never Compromise Reserve line, the new Reserve line they did, is really, really actually good. They sound and feel really good. They're really solid. Like the Reserve 1 has a really classic kind of answer to Newport 2 type shape, a little bit more squared off, a little bit larger bumpers on there, all that. But I think it looks really good. I know not everybody's a big fan of like the two-tone kind of alignment style that they did for this, but they also did an all-silver one. So if you didn't want the two-tone, not a big deal. But these things here are really kind of nicely milled. There's a lot going on with it, in terms of the milling lines, all that. They seem to be pretty high quality, and overall they're pretty darn solid. Now, the downside to them is that they're $449, and that can turn a lot of people away, especially when it doesn't have the big milled putter brand name on it. But this thing here, I think is milled really nicely. It feels and sounds really good. I think the performance, it puts a good roll in the ball. I like the two-tone version, like the original. That kind of gives you that little bit of alignment. I think that's pretty cool. Kind of frames the ball up pretty well as well. And then the other thing too, they've got some interchangeable weights. And I believe if you're like a fitting partner with them, they've got a bunch of fitting options to get you dialed in. But movable weights, so you can make it heavier, make it lighter, get it to feel the way you want it to. But it's a really good putter. It sounds and feels good. I've been really impressed with it. I didn't expect much when it first came out, and then once it came out, I rolled it a little bit. Really impressed. I think it does really well here. I think the only thing that's holding it back is the price. It's just really expensive for being a name that's not quite there yet. I mean, if you knew Never Compromise from back in the day, sure, great. But I have not, and I was in a shop when the original ones first came out. But the downside too is that it doesn't quite have them the same tech where it's like the lighter weight material in the middle and then heavier in the black section. So it's just a traditionally milled putter, but it's done nicely, and they have a few different head shapes, and I think it's a pretty good putter. I think if it was $100 less, I think you'd see a lot more of these in play. But the Never Compromise Reserve, I think these are really good putters. They did a nice job with them. Now, when it comes to the backup or the runner up in terms of underrated, it's got the same reserve name, but it is the TaylorMade TP Reserve. Now, these I think are going away. When you look on the website, the prices have dropped, so these might be going away. I thought it was a really good putter line. I thought they had some nice shapes, really classic, really simple, nothing too crazy. They had a lot of different styles, different necks, things like that. And I guess nobody cared because I guess way how they're being discounted. But the TaylorMade TP Reserve I thought was really good. I putted around with, I think it was like the B29 or something like that. It actually had a little flow neck, and for whatever reason I tried it and it worked really well, and I just putted with it pretty well with it. So I thought the feel with those kind of like horizontal lines milled into it, I thought the feel was pretty good. It was soft, but I guess nobody bought them, and I never heard anybody really talk about them a whole lot other than when they were first launched. But the TaylorMade TP Reserves, I thought were really good putters. I thought they did a nice job with those, and I'm kind of shocked they didn't do as well as they did. So Never Compromise Reserve putters would be my most underrated, and then the TaylorMade TP Reserve would be my number 2. Both these putters, fantastic putters, and you just don't see them. You don't see people talking about them. You don't see people playing them, and I think they definitely deserve more love. So Now moving to ball, and I think golf ball, again, with direct-to-consumer stuff, there's probably a ton of golf balls out there that you could probably throw in this category that that are underrated. But again, I'm going with stuff that you can probably find in store more than not. And I think the one that, to me, every year is kind of just underrated is the Titleist AVX. Everybody talks about Pro V1, Pro V1X, left dash, left dot, whatever it is. Nobody ever talks about AVX, and I think there's a lot of people out there that look for a lower spinning golf ball, maybe a lower flying golf ball, and nobody ever mentions AVX. And if you're looking for something, it's got a urethane cover. It's kind of in that Pro V1 family in terms of technology and all that. It is right there. And I think for a lot of bigger, higher spin players, or you could find the AVX is really, really good. Now, it is a little bit more kind of geared toward distance, so it goes a little bit longer. And around the greens, it's going to be okay. It's not going to be as spinny as, say, Pro V1. But I think we know with the long game spin, and if you're that kind of high spin player, you're probably generating a ton of spin with your wedges and short irons anyway. I think the AVX could be something great. And, if you're somebody who's, kind of hit some of the firmer balls that they've made that have been geared towards super low spin, this has a nice soft feel to it and all that. So I think AVX, fits more players than ever try it. People look at it and, they're looking for lower spin golf balls. They just don't try AVX. They go to other brands or whatever. But the AVX is a great low launch, low spin golf ball that goes a long way. And I think for a bigger hitter, that kind of spin around the green that gets reduced, I think, they possibly could overcome that with the amount of spin they generate anyway. But the AVX, I feel like all the time is just not, it's not promoted a whole lot. I don't feel like it's not played a whole lot. You just don't see a ton of it out there. And tech wise, it's right up there with the other golf balls. So really interesting one, but I think AVX is definitely one that more people should try, especially people who are kind of chasing that, the Pro V1X left dash and things like that. So it's definitely another option out there if you're looking for a lower launching, lower spinning ball, especially in the long game side of it. And then it's got a good feel around the green. So AVX would be my number one. Now, number two, my runner-up is going to be the Wilson Staff Model and Staff Model X. Those two balls are brand new, and I think I got to try them out first down in Pinehurst when we did a little Wilson trip with some Golf WRX members, and I was really impressed. I thought they played really, really well. So I like the Staff Model X. It's kind of a little bit more like a Pro V1, a little bit higher spin than the Staff Model, but I think they both perform really well. I think the members who were out there tried them were really impressed and didn't realize how good the ball was. I didn't really realize how good the ball was, but both the Staff Model and the X. The X a little bit firmer, Staff Model a little bit softer. Like I said, X spins just a little bit more, but it just depends on what you need. But I think they're two really solid golf balls. Now, they're the same price as everything else, so I think a lot of people will look at it and say, well, a $50 a dozen Wilson golf ball compared to a $50 dozen Callaway, TaylorMade, Titleist, whatever. They probably shift their way over there. But I think Wilson did a great job with the Staff Model and Staff Model X of having two golf balls that perform at a tour level. They spin a ton around the green. And then also, when you look at just the way they play from tee to green, they play really well also. So I played a handful of rounds with both balls. Like I said, for me, I'm more of an X player, which isn't a shock. But they play really well. And I think that's a really good golf ball that, again, people just don't try. And I think there could be a lot of players who find some really good success with those balls because they do perform really well. And even though they're just not, in a ton of bags. So the final category for most underrated, we're going to go wood shaft. And you know me, I have to go wood shaft. And of course, I think the biggest one out there in terms of one that's just not played a lot that's really good is the UST Mamiya Link M40X TXPX. So the TXPX concept ones, these ones have the full length M40X material in here. But I think it's a really good shaft line. I think when you look at what's packed into it, that full M40X material. They have three different launches, the red, blue, black. So red's going to be the highest. Then you go blue, is more mid launch, and then black into low launch. They have something for kind of, all three flight differences there. But then also you have something that's really stable, really easy, really consistent. They're accurate. And, they've actually got a pretty smooth feel. They're a little bit stouter than I think you think they would be, but once you hit them, you realize that they really perform really well. And if you're somebody, especially if you like that black, you're looking for something low launch, low spin, and has good feel to it, but it's really stable. That black is really solid. I really like blue and red a whole bunch. Black just launches too low for me, but blue and red perform really well. I had blue in a QI10 Fairway head for most of the year, and I played that thing and gamed it up until I got fit into GT. But it performs really well. I really like that shaft and that head. It worked really well, and I hit some really good 3-wood shots. But I think UST did a great job with the Link series. I think this M40X, the TSPX version, even the non-TSPX version is really good as well. But this one here, you can just tell there's a little more something to it, and these things are just a touch more stout than those non-TSPX versions. So I'm a big fan. I think these things perform really well, and I think just not enough people have tried them to see how they fit their game. So definitely a solid option if you're looking for something new out there in terms of the driver, fairway, whatever. If you're looking for a new wood shaft, like I said, 3 different models. They made me, and then I think in the non TSPX version, there's a white version that kind of is different as well. So a lot of options out there, but but really a ton of performance out of these shafts. So I'm going to go with that there. And then for the backup, I'm going to go with the VA Composite Synyster. That shaft there, I think VA composites, if you know about them, and not many people do, more people need to know about them. But if you don't know about them, they make some really smooth, great feeling shafts. They're really high performing, but most of their stuff is kind of pushed more towards the kind of higher launching, a little bit more spin side. Like everything's kind of more higher launching. And then they came out with the Synyster, and the Synyster is a low launch or mid low launch, lower launching shaft, low spin, and it is stout, it is stable. It kind of plays with the in the same arena as the Ventus Blacks, the Tensei Whites, those lower launching, lower spinning shafts. Like that's where it plays, and it's definitely stiff. It's definitely stable. Big hitters, you're not going to be able to overpower it, especially you move into like a 75 gram. They're extremely stout, extremely stable, but really still has that same good VA smooth feel. But yeah, I've hit it a bunch. I've hit it in a handful of heads. Really, really good option there. And I think if you're somebody who's looking for something different but low launch, low spin, that Synyster from VA Composites is really solid. So that is my choice for second most underrated shaft of 2024. So that is my underrated list, the 2024 most underrated. Let me know what you think. Do you think I'm off on some, right, wrong, whatever? I would love to hear some comments. Hit me up on Instagram at Club Junkie Pod, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. What do you think about my list? And let's talk about it. See what your thoughts are on most underrated. So that's all I've got for the show. Thank you so much for listening in 2024. Truly appreciate it. I'm super excited for 25. And hopefully we can do more and review more stuff, talk about more stuff, and keep rolling. So thank you all so much. Thank you for this year, and I'm looking forward to next year.